Salam, hello, and welcome to another episode of Silly Points Cricket. I'm joined here with my friend Taufeeq Mian, and if you have been following Pakistan cricket, you must be very, very happy right about now. Pakistan is continuing its dominant display post T20 World Cup and the sad way that ended. What is it? 6 T20s, 2 tests, clean sweep of West Indies and Bangladesh. Some very, very encouraging performances there. Some close calls, some good standout players, emerging players, and we'll get all of that. Get into all of that today in this episode. But Taufeeq, just your initial thoughts on what happened in these last two series, because we spoke about it previously. Consistency is not a word you associate with Pakistan. Great consistency in the T20 World Cup, and okay, not the strongest West Indies or Bangladesh teams, but you can only beat what's put out in front of you, and they did that.
Absolutely agree with you, Faizan. I mean, I think we mentioned the championship mentality, or the champions mentality rather, for Australia, and I think Pakistan are starting to develop that. They're making this a habit, winning habit, right? And I think that's great, honestly. And it's not that easy. We mentioned Bangladesh can be considered an easy team, but like you mentioned, you beat whoever's in front of you, and Bangladesh isn't as easy as you might think in their own home turf, right? I mean, they did beat Australia 4-1 in T20s, and then
4-1, and New Zealand 3-2.
Right, and so those are two great teams.
Granted, they did have their second string team out though.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, we did also change our players a little bit near the end as well, and tested some new players, and we still won as well. So great kudos to that. But I'm going to take a little bit more of a critical approach, and kind of I believe the Pakistan team deserves that a little bit now that they're more on the winning scale, and I think we should critique them a little bit more. And so I would say in the Bangladesh T20 series, the first game, I think there was a hiccup there where we were like 4 down, 24 odd runs. And if it weren't for like Khushdil Shah and Fakhar Zaman that resurrected us, and then great innings at the end by Shadab and Nawaz, we may not have won that game. And then the third game, the third T20, was also a really close one where we stumbled again. And this time it was the middle order that stumbled, right? And that was where Mahmudullah, I believe, picked up 3 wickets in his single over of his spell. That was the final over of the game. And then he almost got the 4th wicket as well, which was considered a dead ball at the end because Mohammad Nawaz moved out of the way. And that's a different debate in itself. But that ball was reballed, and Mohammad Nawaz hit it for a 4 and won that game. And if you look at the West Indies T20 series, West Indies started getting better. The first 2, Pakistan dominated, but the third game, they put a 200 score, and Pakistan really had to play their best to chase that. And fortunately, all our players batted really well in that game.
Yeah. In regards to the Bangladesh series, Bangladesh, I mean, it's T20 cricket, right? You're going to have anybody can beat anyone, right?
Right.
And especially Bangladesh was playing at home, where they can only win at home, apparently. They they make these completely shitty pitches, right? And, and play 10 spinners and
that only they can play, right?
That only they can play, right? So it's like, it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But, but kudos to Pakistan, they got there. And one way or the other, you're going to, you can't be perfect in every single game. So I wouldn't say it was a struggle, but what I would say it was, going to Bangladesh and, turning them over, what was it, 3-0? You're not going to win every game perfectly, but no, point taken. We won some records along the way, didn't we?
Yeah, so that's another good point you brought up, right? I mean, 2021 calendar year, we had 20 wins out of 29, of which 6 were losses and 3 of the games were abandoned. That's a record set by Pakistan, and they actually broke their own record in 2018, which was 17 wins. So great record there. I believe Mohammad Rizwan set the record for most runs, T20 runs, international runs in the calendar year. and that was like 1,300 odd runs at an average of like 70 with a strike rate of 135. That is ridiculous.
He's had an unreal year.
Yeah.
He's actually been nominated for T20 Player of the Year from ICC. We'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about the awards.
And honestly, like Babar Azam didn't have one of the best series, both of them, in fact. I mean, he averaged less than 20 in 6 innings, and that's actually with a score of 79 odd runs, which he made in that 3rd innings against West Indies. But even he was the 2nd highest run scorer with like 900 odd runs at an average of 30. So you can imagine 6 innings of averaging less than 20 brought him down. But still, he had the most runs in the calendar year, 2nd most runs in the calendar year.
Yeah, but I mean, Babar had a few failings. Personally, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, me either.
Right. He doesn't do well on slow pitches like that. He likes the ball coming onto the bat, right? Yeah. He likes a little bit of bounce. He doesn't mind if it's swinging. So maybe these pitches weren't great for him. But I do just, I know this is a Pakistani podcast, but, we have to be talk about just how, and I hate using that word, but crap Bangladesh were. Yeah. They lost, what was it, that one game in 2 days, 2.5 days?
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous if you think about it. Pakistan just played them at their own game. Yeah. And, let's bring him up, Sajid Khan.
Right.
Fight number 1 for Pakistan, right? Yeah. A fellow bald man. So there's that. Great celebration. Do you know what that celebration is?
No, I think it's like some sort of a
yoga pose.
No, it's not a yoga pose because I've seen Shikhar Dhawan do it too. In fact, the exact one, I think it's like a what do you call it? Kabaddi pose. Where they kind of hit their thighs and put one of their hands in the air. I think it's a kabaddi pose that they do or something like that. But I've seen Shikhar Dhawan do it too, and he's got the same mustache. So I don't know.
He looks like Shikhar Dhawan.
Sort of
maybe he's inspired by Shikhar. But okay, so there's been some. This is an interesting topic for me because a lot of people are saying Sajid Khan will be the natural replacement for Yasir Shah. I'm a skeptic, I don't like bigging players up in any sport, right off the bat. And to me, the pitch was pitch perfect for Sajid. But what did you think? Is he the next big thing, or this is just, one of those things where it's a great series, but we'll see not much of him in the future?
I'm not going to go on the record saying he's going to be the next big thing, but he's got tremendous potential. And the reason I say that is because in 2 test matches, he single-handedly, I want to say, won that 2nd game for us in 2 days with taking, I don't know, was it like 12 wickets or something like that? Ridiculous. 8 in 1 innings at least. And 16 wickets total over the span of those 2 test matches. And when you compare that to Nouman Ali, who we have relied on quite a bit in the absence of Yasir Shah, and he took 0 wickets in 2 games. And so granted that it's too early, the fact that he outplayed Nouman Ali with the same exact pitch conditions says something. And I think the commentators mentioned it really well in one of the games, and then they probably repeated it several times thereafter. And that was that Sajid Ali very quickly slowed down his pace, increased his loop, and got, I want to say, at least a degree or 2 more turn than Nouman Ali. Whereas over the course of those 2 test matches, Nouman Ali kept bowling the same way as if he was bowling a T20 game. And he was going to be smacked right away or something like that. And interestingly, Nouman Ali hasn't even been playing in T20s. So, what was his reason for not changing his approach over the 10 days of cricket?
Sajid Khan did play to the conditions, right?
Right.
And that's what was interesting to me because he kept looping the ball up and Bangladesh kept falling for it, right? I mean, it was one of those things where you said, just hit it for a 6, right?
Put him on the back foot, right?
Yeah, he's looping the ball to you, but maybe that was the right thing to do, right? Apparently, and it did work. But I just kept looking and I'm like, this guy's bowling at 30 miles per hour, right? And he's like just pitching it up there, delivery. And that got me thinking, okay, if it's not Bangladesh who's up there, what if it's David Warner up there, or Kohli, or Joe Root, or Ben Stokes, whoever? Those guys will not fall for that, right? And now you could argue, okay, well, Sajid Khan played to the conditions. That's what you have to bowl, and he can bowl different ways. And I guess that's the missing story, right? Can he change his style? Can he adapt to different conditions? But when I was watching him, I was just thinking, how is he getting wickets?
Yeah.
How is he getting wickets?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, that's why I say it's too early to tell. It'll be interesting to see how he does in other formats as well as other pitches, right? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I don't want to... Bangladesh is a very good team in terms of batting against spin. Just because, like you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, that's their home conditions are.
Yeah, that's all they get to practice on. Right?
That's all they get to practice, and so if Sajid Ali can perform there, then what were your thoughts about Abid Ali?
I'm very torn on Abid Ali because on one hand he scores runs, right? But on the other hand, he only does it against Zimbabwe, Bangladesh. I think he maybe played one or two good innings against Sri Lanka, right?
Right.
But I'm not convinced. I'm just not. Until he does it in high stakes, tough conditions against India. Well, that'll never happen. But
Right.
Australia, England, New Zealand. In those conditions, then I'll start. For now, I'm not convinced. Honestly, I think Shan Masood should be bought back. I think he's good. He just needs. He's a proper test player. I'm more convinced by Shan Masood than Abid Ali, honestly.
Wow.
Because in conditions where you're swinging, where it's tough, Shan Masood's your guy. He's proper batsman.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Abid Ali just seems right now a flat track bully.
Yeah, but he's been putting up the runs and at an extremely fast pace in terms of his average, right? And for our viewers that may not have heard already, he's had 2 angioplasties. I think it was in the Azam trophy. He started getting a couple of pain, went to the hospital, had to have a couple of stints put in, I think. And so all our prayers and du'as are with him. Hopefully he has a rapid recovery, but fingers crossed. I hope it's not the case.
He said he's going to be back.
Did he?
I don't see it when you recover from something like that.
Yeah.
But hopefully for his sake.
For his sake, because, I mean, just like Babar Azam and Mahmoud Rizwan in the T20s and ODIs, I mean, Abid Ali had started to solidify that position, right? And for a while, I know you mentioned Shan Masood, and we'll talk about Abdullah Shafiq as well, which is another great find. I was wondering if Babar Azam might actually have to go up and open again instead of coming 1 down or 2 down if Abid Ali does not come back into action.
No, that's where you bring Shan Masood back.
That's where you bring
that's Shan Masood is a proper I mean, like, look, like, you people have been crying out for a technically great batsman in Pakistan.
And you got one, yeah. And
you've got one in Shan Masood. Now, Shan Masood doesn't help himself because he bats too slowly sometimes, and he doesn't grab the opportunities that he makes 20-30 runs, but the potential is there. I agree with you. So strong, right? To your point, hopefully Abid Ali makes a full recovery. He's a good option to have.
Yeah.
Right, when teams come visit Pakistan next year, I would love to see him play in Pakistan because I feel like he could dominate there.
Right.
But we shall see. But you brought up another player, Abdullah Shafiq. I like this guy.
Yeah.
I really, really like Abdullah Shafiq. Proper batsman again. Yeah. And I don't know what's happening lately in Pakistan national cricket academies, but what is Abdullah Shafiq, Shan Masood, this Herrera guy, what's his name? Mohammad Herrera. Yeah. These are technically correct players. Right. Babar Azam, right?
So mind you, Abdullah Shafiq actually hasn't played as much first-class cricket, I believe. And
he was thrown in right away.
Yeah, he was just thrown in right away just because he was technically sound. That would never happen in Australia. But here we are in the subcontinent, and you see talent and you bring them in, right? Whether they're Hassan Raza 14-year-olds or whatever that might be. So hopefully we can kind of groom him and continue to groom him, but he does look like a solid find. And
again, the jury's out on him, right? He's gonna have to play some big matches before, but he the eye test when you see a player and you're like, okay, like this guy can be a great player, right? Now, mind you, I've been bitten on the ass too many times by a player that looked competent but turned out to be a lame duck. But Abdullah Shafiq does excite me. He's another player who I think should be definitely in the series. Who are we playing next? Australia?
I believe it is Australia and Pakistan.
Right.
So that will be interesting. But I don't... Yeah. So one thing I will mention about Abdullah Shafiq, though, against spin, when the ball's coming in, I've noticed him try to cut a few times. And that's fine if the ball is spinning away, but on the Dusra or the Googly, that just kind of straight arm, carom ball type of balls, I've seen him get trapped a few times. He was helped by umpire's call in DRS a couple of times, but then the other times he got out. And it was mostly LBW, so he still was able to cover his stumps and not get bowled. But that is something that he'll have to work on. And it was kind of a little surprising to me that he was taking that type of an approach in test match cricket, where you're not as forced to make runs out of every single ball, right? If you feel like a ball has the potential to come in, you straight bat it, come forward. Point. But that was one thing that I did notice there.
Yeah, that's a good point. He definitely will have some faults right now, but I wouldn't mind an opener who actually bats quickly for Pakistan, right? So many teams have it. We tend to go at a snail's pace, especially with Azhar Ali coming in at number 3, and maybe someone more attacking at front wouldn't hurt. There's one other player I want to talk about, two actually, but they're both more from the West Indies series. In Bangladesh too, but they're in the T20 series. Haider Ali and Mohammad Wasim Jr. Start off with Haider Ali. Finally comes good.
Yeah.
Finally comes good.
And he struggled. I'll be frank with you, right? In the beginning, he struggled, but the good thing, and he mentioned this in one of his press conferences as well, is that he was told to just stay at the crease. No matter how much you're struggling, don't give your wicket away, which he didn't. And then you saw that once this guy's eyes are set, man, he can hit. For somebody that's not as big as Shahid Afridi, Chris Gale, any of the other big West Indies players that are extremely big hitters, man, this guy clears the boundary.
He clears the boundary, but I had a few gripes with him when I first saw him. One was that he was a leg side player predominantly, right? He tried to loft everything on the leg side, and his flicks were everything. He didn't target the offside at all, and that to me was a big. I mean, if I can see it, bowlers can see it, right? They're not. And he sort of rectified that against the West Indies. He was playing better array of shots, right? But there was one thing he said, and it really annoyed me. Like, it really annoyed me. After that match where he hit, 69, 70, whatever it was, 60, 70, 80 runs, he came into the press conference and he said, I rate my performance 10 out of 10.
Really?
I was like,
I don't
you
remember
fool.
that.
I was like, you idiot. Now, look, that could just be the fact that he's cocky young guy, right? He's really happy about his performance, but you don't say that, man.
Yeah, you don't.
You didn't hit a century. You didn't get you didn't break any records, right? Yeah. You weren't perfect, right? Yeah. And it really irritates me when people say something like that. But whatever. But I just watched that and I was like, I hope this guy has a brain on him.
It goes back to one of our prior episodes where you mentioned some of our Pakistani players. They're very humble, right? And that plays a big role in your professionalism. And this could bite him.
I don't need another Umar Akmal on my team, man.
Exactly.
Right? I hope this guy seems to be not as mentally unstable, let's say, than Umar Akmal. But saying things like that, especially when you're young, is like giving yourself a perfect score. First of all, why are you giving yourself a score? And second, why is it perfect, right?
That's our job, right?
That's my job. I'm going to give you, and buddy, it wasn't a 10 out of 10. I would, But anyways, we move on, and then Mohammad Wasim Jr. I would say that's as good as it gets. Some great performances. Hit the stumps a lot.
He did. He reminds me. You might hate me for saying this. He reminds me a lot of Hassan Ali early on. even now. He just has the tendency to pick up wickets. In the Bangladesh series, he wasn't found in terms of the batsman finding him and hitting him for ton of boundaries. Very economical. The West Indies players took him for a ride, man. I mean, he was not economical at all, and that made me second guess. But then you look at the stats, and he still found ways to pick up wickets. 3 wickets here, 2 wickets there. It was great, and I'm excited for him.
And he's doing it on pitches which are not conducive to like fast bowling. I mean, we create a lot of fast bowlers, right? But we don't create pitches which help them, right?
Right.
And I think we'll get to that later. Maybe Ramiz Rama with the drop-in pitches, but I like he took his chance, right? He did what he could, and you're going to be expensive in T20 cricket,
right?
That's just the nature of the game, right? Nobody keeps it to 20 runs a game, right?
Yeah.
But again, another great find, and I really hope that these players get a coach, because Saklin's not there anymore.
Yeah.
His tenure is over, so we'll probably have to talk about who the next coach will be. But the next coach will have a great selection of players to room, right? And I feel like that's why Mickey Arthur wanted to stay on, because he said the exact same thing. He said there are a lot of good players in this team, right, that are upcoming. And I'm excited for it, because for the first time I feel like these are genuinely good players.
Right. Where we can actually be selective and say stuff like Abid Ali can play in Pakistan, but not in Australia. We didn't have that luxury before, right? Where we could be selective, like, oh, these players can play in these conditions and not in these conditions. Absolutely. One thing I'm really excited about with Mohammad Asim, and we just wrapped up another episode, but talking about all-rounders and potential replacements for Mohammad Hafiz as he's retired. But this guy, Mohammad Asim Jr., is an all-rounder, and apparently he bats really well. So I'm really looking forward to him in this upcoming PSL, to see how he performs there. But we haven't seen a lot of him in terms of batting internationally. And so that will be another interesting thing. And he I believe it was him that mentioned that his role models were kind of like Abdul Razak. So if he can do half of what he did, man, that would be something.
Yeah. That is definitely a good point, because we could do with some big hitters down at the thing. And I think Ramiz Raja is even hiring a power hitting coach. So maybe that guy can work with Mohammad Wasim Jr. But so there's 4 great players that I think we've highlighted. Just on the downside a little bit, any concerns on Babar's form or his captaincy, or how do you think we'll set up? Do you think Babar is the right guy to lead us in the future? It seems like a stupid question, but any question marks?
No question marks at all. I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, right, I'm critiquing the team, and Babar had a couple of series that he wouldn't mind forgetting from his batting standpoint, averaging less than 20. I mean, his individual scores were 7, 1, 19, 0, 7, and then 79. Those were his 6 innings. So extremely poor. I mean, that really brought his average down for T20s in this 2021 calendar year. And even in the test, right, 10 and 13 not out, and then 76. But one thing you'll notice is he comes good when he needs to. That 79 was crucial. And we didn't mention this, but against West Indies, it broke the record for Pakistan highest run chases.
Yeah, that's when we were chasing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Chasing something 207, I believe, 208 to win.
That was a record for us, right?
That was a record for us. The previous record was against South Africa. They scored like 204 or something like that. And
we did it easily, didn't we?
Yeah.
What was the first wicket partnership was like, what, 150 almost?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I mean, all the players came good again. Excellent batting performance. They all clicked. And again, talking about consistency, we're jumping back a little bit, but another thing that's really great about this Pakistan team is all the match winners from the test matches and the T20s were all different, with the exception of Haider Ali. He got 2 man of the matches. All the other players were different players. And so again, they are all contributing. And that's amazing to see. So nothing wrong with Babar's captaincy. Yes, a little bit of a glitch. Maybe it's the slower tracks, like you mentioned. He'll come good.
Just on that point, do you think Pakistan should retain Saklin Mushtaq, or do you think we should find a new coach?
Man, honestly, it's hard for me to say how much the coaches have actually influenced Pakistan. I mean, if you look at these past series, I believe the coaches weren't even there that were at the T20 World Cup. And
Well, I think Philander was there, wasn't he?
I think
Or
that
Hayden was not there.
Hayden was not
I
there.
think Philander was.
Maybe for the first Bangladesh series, and then he moved and left.
Then he moved on, yeah.
But even Philander and Hayden, like in the T20 World Cup, how much credit should they really get for just coming in compared to what the prior coaches had done? Completely different debate, but for me, this whole coaching thing, I don't know. I think somebody has to have a much longer duration as a coach to really make an impact. That's my personal opinion. What about yours? I mean, do you think Sakhlin influenced?
Well, it depends on who the alternative is, right? With these questions, right? I mean, they bring in back in Waqar Yunus, and what are you really doing, right?
Right.
I wouldn't have minded him because people seem to respect him.
That's true.
And Sakhlin does seem like a level-headed guy, right? He's had good stints with other coaching with England, and
yes.
But is he a head coach? I don't know, right? We'll see. We'll see if another coach comes in and suddenly we see a low drop of form. Maybe we can say Sakhlin was the reason. But I always found that Pakistani players tend to do well with Pakistani coaches. Maybe that's something. The only really foreign coach. Two coaches really. One was Bob Woolmer and the other one was Mickey Arthur.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a South African connection. But we'll see what happens with Sakhlin. Maybe they will retain him. Who knows? Any final thoughts?
No, I think I'm just super excited for the PSL starting up here soon. And so everybody, please do tune in to see our recaps. We're going to try to increase our frequency of videos. Just because it's going to be exciting times, games every day, and so tune in.
Yeah, that same for you took the words right from my mouth. If you like this video, please subscribe. We will be talking probably about the PSL next. Who are you supporting? Peshawar?
Peshawar's
Zalmi. They retained Kamran Akmal for some reason, but Lahore Qalandars for me. Hopefully, we actually do something this year. But if you like this video, please subscribe. Again, we will be talking about the PSL and covering everything Pakistan cricket in the next few months with the PSL and then leading up to the Australian series. So that's all from us, and we will hope to see you soon.